So I request everyone to mute your microphone, so that way we don't have any of this. Thank you very much. So this is I assume that everybody can see the slide, and the topic is your microbiome and your health, an introduction to aspects of lives that live within you. Okay, and what is the microbiome? It's for many it might be a new word. The word micro is well known. Micro means anything small, very minute. Biome means a kind of ecosystem where different flora, fauna live within a certain space, and they all live in harmony and they feed off each other, kind of thing. So to give an example, for example, the Western Ghats, which we are all in, most of us are in Bombay. So the Western Ghats is a is a biome. So there are trees and there are things that are unique to the Sahyadris, to the Western Ghats, and there's a biome. So those trees and the soil and the birds and everything, they all support each other. The biome here will be different from the biome in, say, Africa or in Amazon rainforest, because there are different animals and different creatures and insects are different there. So biome means that. And there is a biome in our own body, and we support the biome and the biome supports us, and we don't realize this, but modern trade and commerce has made many things negative about the biome, and we are trying to learn more, dispel some myths. Okay, so contents. We look at, thanks Jan for joining. We look at the definitions, little bit of definition, not to this, but just to know what these terms mean. Then we look at many things about the amazing microbiome. We look at the role of the microbiome, and largely I end up with saying how to lead a microbiome friendly life, because you can't be at fight with your own body. That's what most of us are doing most of the times. So microbiome has a very large word called germs. And we use the word germs, we use bacteria, virus interchangeably, but they have very definite biological meanings. So there are four types: bacteria, virus, fungi, and protozoa, which is plant. Fungi is like mushrooms and all that. Virus is something that we are all become very familiar with because of the coronavirus. And then there's the bacteria, which is this. So let's look at the difference between bacteria and virus, because most of the time we are talking about these two and we are using them a little bit interchangeably. Just helps us to know a little bit better. How do viruses differ from bacteria? Viruses are tinier than bacteria. In fact, the largest virus is smaller than the smallest bacterium. All viruses have is a protein coat and a core of genetic material, either RNA or DNA. Now this mRNA term has started becoming used because that is how the AstraZeneca vaccine was developed, by taking the mRNA route rather than a DNA route. And we are not getting into too technical, but yeah, just to understand that that was there. And all viruses have a protein coat, and we all see this protein spike, and we have seen that. Unlike bacteria, viruses can't survive without a host. So that is very important. Viruses cannot survive without a host. A bacteria can be in the soil for a long time, and then when you eat it, to the carrot or the cucumber or whatever you eat it, it can again flourish within your body. It can come back to life. A virus cannot. So that is why in the viruses, touching hands, touching door, sanitizing, all that has become important, because if the virus is there on the door handle, then you want to sanitize it so that it doesn't spread. So that is why the viruses cannot live without a host. They can only reproduce by attaching themselves to cells. In most cases, they reprogram the cells to make new viruses until the cells burst and die. So this is what is infection. This is what at different levels you say, oh, corona positive ho gaya. So which means that there were a lot of cells that showed up in the report. Okay. In other cases, they turn normal cells into malignant or cancer cells. This is how we get cancer. So many of these viruses go attach themselves to certain cells, and then the cells, instead of expanding and bursting, which is what happens in many of these diseases that are cardiopulmonary in nature. In many of the other cases, they attach to the cells and they become cancerous and they become malignant and they kill the cells. Okay, so that is what happens in other cases. So this is the underlying this of many diseases. Most of the diseases, most of the this, if you can keep the mic mute, that will be nice. Okay. So in most of the other cases, they turn normal cells into malignant. So this is how it comes, and it helps to understand what is one layer down, which we ignore. And modern science and all that teaches us things that may not be congruent to a healthy lifestyle. So that is the objective of why I'm doing this presentation. Some amazing facts. Okay, the microbes on Earth would outnumber all the other flora and fauna on Earth and outweigh them as well. So if you took all the microbes, germs, bacteria, virus, the variety that is there is more than the number of trees, the birds, the animals, the insects, and everything. So there are more microorganisms in variety than there is trees and plants and flora and fauna, and of course the weight also will be more than them. Our own body is composed of about 10 million human cells, but is host to around 100 trillion bacterial cells. So my body has got 10 trillion human cells. Okay, the hair, the eyes, the nose, the teeth, the skin, the liver, all of them are the human cells, and there are about 10 trillion of them that make me Venkatraman. But my body has got about 100 trillion. That is about 1:10 ratio of bacterial cells. Your body bacteria outnumber your own 10 to 1. Okay? So the question people ask is, if there are 10 times, whose mic is on? Can somebody mute your mic, please? Yeah, let me just. Sorry about this. Okay, I think we have this muted. Okay, fine. So the question here is that if there are 10 times bacterial cells, why don't I look like a bacteria? I mean, why do I look like Venkatraman? I mean, why do I look like what I am? The thing is that the size of the human cell is about 200, 300, 500 times bigger than the size of a bacterial cell. So, it helps to think of a pinhead on a tennis ball. So the human cell is like a tennis ball, and we put 10 pins on it. The pins will not alter the shape of the ball. So the bacterial cells do not alter or change the way you look, but they all function and they all have a role to play in how the ball will behave. Okay, so that is the analogy that people give. Think of 10 pinheads, 10 pins. You put into a tennis ball. So that is how the analogy works well there. Up to 15% of the calories that you eat, people who are in weight loss will find this amazing, but 15% of the calories that you eat is actually eaten by the bacteria. And I'm going to show you some slides of videos of how that happens in the colon, and then that bacteria throws out stuff and that feeds you. So where is the nutrition going? Where is all the nutrition science going when you eat what apple is eaten by a bacteria, and the bacteria throws out waste product, and that is what goes and becomes maybe ATP or glycogen if you're a runner, and that is what interests you. So 99% of the unique genes in your body are bacterial, and only about 1% are human. So these are all amazing facts, and I've not made this up. They all come from very, very reputable sources. I've stuck myself to WebMD, NCHI, Mayo Clinic. Those are the few places that I went to which are known, which will not put conspiracy theories around. Okay, so now this is really the meat of the matter. 20 facts from NCBI. Okay, can you all see the slide, or I think I'll have to share this portion. Can you all see the share screen?
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, fine. 20 things you don't know about the human gut microbiome, and this is from NCBI, which is the most reputed United States National Library of Medicine and National Institute of Health. Okay, so this is 20 things. Unless you have avoided all mass media, you're likely to be hearing that human microbiome, particularly the gut, and how people are sampling their own feces for the purpose of science. Okay, so taking biopsies, eating loads of yogurt, kombucha, and kimchi, and to try to foster the good bacteria. The science is exploding, and we are just in the early stages of making some sense. I'm really telling you, we are in the very, very, very early stages of making some sense of it. Okay, there are some things about the gut microbiome that you might find helpful to know. cardiovascular nurses interested in prevention and diet counseling are encouraged to follow this line of work. So heart disease is connected to your gut microbiome, and we'll see how these are all connected. Or the microbiome is defined as bacteria collectively, because all of them have got cells and fungi and everything. They are collectively referred to as the second human genome. So there is a human genome, which is what I got from my parents, and they got from their parents, which you all know, and that is what makes Venkatraman look like Venkatraman, has a hair color, has a male potting, male baldness pattern, makes me what I am. Correct, but the bacteria are a second human genome, so they also have an act on how my primary genome is working. So a lot of our health and mental state of mind comes from the microbiome that we host in our body. There are 10x the number of microbial cells. Until the entry of the next generation sequencing in 2005, the birth of metagenomics. So that has become a big science. One understanding of normal microbiome patterns, including what constitutes a healthy versus disease pattern, is still in its infancy. So this is very important. Okay, our understanding of what is normal and what is unhealthy is still in its infancy. We don't know why certain people are exposed to coronavirus. My shopkeeper, for example, is the shop that I go to. From the time he started, he has stopped wearing a mask, and everybody's coming into the shop and going out of the shop. And he says, "Sir, kuch nahi hota hai." And then there are people who are lived in their house the entire pandemic, have got coronavirus and died. So very very infancy, and we don't know. Okay, we just don't know why this is happening. Uh, point number 6, there is a lot of this about taking fecal bacterial microbiome and studying that. So there is a lot of study about what is happening in the vaginal microbiome, what is happening in the fecal microbiome, etc. Okay, antibiotic therapy alters the patterns of the gut microbiota. We take antibiotics. I'm not saying antibiotics are harmful, but we do not know. They solve an immediate problem, but very often they create their own problems because they alter the gut microbiome in this. Okay. Uh, so normal gut microbiota in healthy persons includes such pathogenic strains as E. coli and enterocity, but as of yet there is no clear distinction of which is the good versus which is the bad bacteria, or if some have both words. So this I would like to share with a story. Okay. So I went to my village, and in my village, Prakash, I see that you raised your hands, but yeah, give me some time. I'll answer all questions together. Okay. So I went to my village. In my village, I put a borewell. Out of the borewell, water came. So and then I put a RO filter, in my village house, and I was very keen to know whether that what is the composition of that water, whether it's potable or not potable, whether I can drink it or not drink it, all that kind of things. So what I did is that I took 1 liter of water from the borewell, and then I took another liter of bottle from after the RO. Okay, after the water, reverse osmosis water filtration. Bought both the bottles to Bombay, sent it to a lab which I know of in Mulund. After about 15 days, I got my report. So sample A, which is before the filter, okay, after the borewell, before the filter, had about 10x the count of E. coli. Okay, and it says non-potable. 10x the count of E. coli above WHO recommended standards, not potable. RO filter was 2x the count of E. coli, not potable. Okay, so the water filter had taken out 8x of the E. coli, but the 10x had become 2x. It was still not potable as per WHO standards. I was alarmed. I said the filter is working, but it can't filter out so much of E. coli, bacteria. And I rang up my cousins in the village and I said, "Do you know what? We are all drinking E. coli water, blah, blah, blah." The fellow heard me out and he said, "Chill, Venkat." I mean, it's not the language, but he said, "Chill, Venkat. Do you know that my generation, your generation, the current people living in the village have all been drinking this water? We didn't know till you went and got us a report that our water is having 10 times the count of E. coli. What has happened to us? Nothing has happened to us." So this is a standard the Americans have set. So why I'm saying this is that many of these things that we today consider as science and gospel truth are actually flying in the face of things. And this is my own story, and I can share both the reports at some time on social media for you all to see. I can pull it out of my file and share. Okay. So anyway, so these are the again 11 point. The gut microbiome of Americans and most other westernized industrial population is less diverse and dominated by different bacterial species than that of people from rural, less developed population. Okay, diet plays a role, but a general shift away from natural environments with little exposure to soil, animals, and environmental microbes seems to be impacting the gut microbiome in potentially detrimental ways. The language is very important. By not being rural, by not being exposed to soil, our gut microbiome is changing and we are falling ill because we are not living in the way nature wanted us to live. Okay, so children raised in homes with pets have less risk of allergic diseases, and new evidence is demonstrating a link with gut microbiome patterns. Exposure to dogs seems to alter the gut microbiome to be protective against allergic airway issues and respiratory issues. So these are all backed by good science. The National Institute of Health in the USA has put this. Okay, so there are about 20 of them, but I'm just making an opening statement. In one study, individuals with type 2 diabetes had gut microbiome a composition that was distinctive enough to be more predictive of the disease state than BMI compared to control subjects. So BMI, we know, is body mass index and height and weight ratio. But the gut microbiome was more indicative of a predisposition to type 2 microbiome. So the food that we ate, and therefore the gut microbiome that changed because of the food that we ate, could predict that you were going to get diabetes much before you were overweight. Okay, the individuals with type 2D had fewer bacteria than anti-inflammatory properties. The shift in gut microbiota followed gastric bypass. Maybe the reason why type 2 diabetes is improved or even resolved even before weight reduction begins. So gastric bypass you do, your weight is still the same, but your diabetes starts coming down, because you bypass the gut bacteria. So these are all, I will not read all of them because they are too lengthy, but generally get the drift that this is where we are. Okay. How the gut this is viewed. Hey, can you all see the slide and hear the video?
Yes, sir.
So for me, the video audio is not audible. I don't know.
You couldn't hear it at all, or could you hear some of it?
No, not at all.
No, same here for me also.
Okay.
So I thought it was some problem with me, so I dropped off and joined again, but it's still the same.
Okay. Okay. So I'll what do I do? Okay. Share sound. 1 minute.
Microbiome affects your health by subscribing to New Scientist. We've even got a special discount for our wonderful YouTube.
Yes, now we can.
Click the link.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't know that I had to turn that button on. I'm sorry. Okay. So
Can you please start from the top if you didn't get guess? I'm sure that nobody must have heard it.
okay. Then I'll restart it. Okay.
A system of symbiotic bacteria and other microbes, trillions of them in all. In fact, there are about as many microbial cells in our body as there are human cells. This thriving microbial world is called our microbiome. While some microbes can make us ill, we need our microbiome to survive. Combined, they're every bit as essential as our heart, our lungs, or our brain. We have microbes living all over our skin and in every orifice of our bodies, but most of the microbiome is in our gut. Our gut microbes are essential for digestion. They also help regulate hormones, and they can boost our immune system. Our microbiome consists of a wide range of microbes, some of which have beneficial effects on our health and some of which are detrimental. A healthy collection of microbes seems to be vital for our well-being, protecting us against some of the biggest threats like heart disease, obesity, diabetes, arthritis, and even depression. On the other hand, having an unhealthy microbiome seems to be a contributing factor for many common diseases. Our modern lifestyles, Western diets, and overuse of antibiotics might all be having a harmful effect on our internal ecology. So how do you cultivate a healthy microbiome? Well, it seems that the more diverse your microbial population is, the better. And the best way to increase the diversity of your microbes is to eat a wide range of plant-based foods. Research has shown that people who eat at least 30 plant-based elements in their diet every week have a wider range of bacteria in their gut, and that's linked to better weight management, better heart health, and better mental health. One easy way to boost your numbers is to add a teaspoon of mixed seeds to your breakfast. Every different seed counts as one of the elements. Whole grains, nuts, and legumes are all great things to add to your diet as well. For a few very unlucky people, your microbiome can go badly awry. For years, a man in the US experienced unexplained dizziness, mental fogginess, and memory loss. He was repeatedly pulled over for drink driving, even when he said he hadn't touched a drop of alcohol. Finally, he was diagnosed with a very rare condition called autobrewery syndrome, which happens when your gut gets colonized by Saccharomyces cerevisiae, otherwise known as brewer's yeast. These yeasts convert carbohydrates into alcohol, so the man was actually brewing beer inside his own stomach. That might sound fun, but this guy will tell you it really isn't. You can learn loads more.
Okay, so this was from a New Scientist, which is a very authentic magazine. So this is a web channel, Science with Sam. So this is from there, and okay, so this is very important. Okay, you say gut instinct.
How the gut and the brain communicate has fascinated us for centuries. The gut-brain axis transforms information via the vagus nerve from food to feelings. Once eaten, digested food particles enter the small intestine, which is covered with a velvety layer of villi. Each villus is lined with a single layer of epithelium. This layer is made up of different cell types. One of them, the enteroendocrine cell, is unlike the others. It is our gut sensor. In addition to communicating through hormones, we discovered that enteroendocrine cells also synapse with nerves, including the vagus nerve. We call those enteroendocrine cells synapsing with nerves neuropod cells. They sense and react to their environment. They sense mechanical, thermal, and chemical stimuli, such as nutrients or bacterial byproducts in the gut lumen. Inside neuropod cells, signals from stimuli are converted into tiny electrical pulses. These pulses propagate via synapses onto the afferent neuron of the vagus nerve. Vagal neurons carry the sensory information to the brainstem, linking the signals generated inside the small intestine to the brain. The neuropod cell connection with the vagus nerve serves as a conduit for food in the gut to influence brain function within seconds. This connection is also a potential portal for gut pathogens to access the brain. This new knowledge is a foundation for designing therapies to treat disorders related to altered gut-brain signaling.
So this video was from Duke University, and their website is gutbrain.com. And what they do in gutbrain.com is try to put all the knowledge of how your gut, which is actually having the second largest amount of neurons. Okay, your gut has the second largest amount of neurons after the brain. Neurons are what your brain is made of. Your gut has second largest amount of neurons. Your gut has the largest collection of bacteria, microflora, everything. So, I mean, we all knew that, it was the gut bacteria and the gut feeling and the gut instinct, and there's so many words that are around the gut. But this is about the gut-brain axis. You know why certain foods make you feel nice and certain breakfast makes you feel happy and certain foods don't agree with you. मेरे को ये जमता नहीं है. Why जमता नहीं है? Because the gut bacteria को जमता नहीं है. It's not you, but it's the gut bacteria that doesn't like the new thing that you're putting there because there's not enough of them to take care of that food. So so these are all various things. We are actually at the beginning of this body of science as a human population. This is probably the most important.
Good grammar and spelling are important, but if you want to write essays that inspire.
So this is probably very important because we think of these things as having no intelligence. We think that they don't have sentimental feelings. They are don't have this. But you'll see that even the viruses communicate with each other. They have knowledge. They know what to do. They know how to do it. They are programmed in a certain way. They may not have the emotional intelligence, the social intelligence that we have, but they have a strong survival intelligence. And this one shows how they communicate with each other.
I've got a victim.
So do I.
Yes, me too. Let's make a joint decision. No more victims. Killing them will not help our cause.
What if viruses within your body also had such meetings to decide their future plans? By deliberately infecting bacterial microbes with a virus, geneticist Rotem Sorek wanted to understand
how bacteria communicate with each other to prevent the intruding virus from infecting them.
But what he saw was completely unexpected. Instead of the bacteria collaborating with each other to stop the virus, it was the virus talking to each other through a tiny protein chain of 6 amino acids known as peptides in a molecular language only they could understand. As they infected more cells, the message got louder and louder, until suddenly at some point the virus stopped infecting any further cells and went into a dormant state. In effect, they jointly decided when to lie low in the host cell, when to replicate, and when to burst out in search of new victims. Professor Sorek identified a particular peptide, PHI3T, that enabled different generations of viruses to communicate with each other in a process known as quorum sensing. Much like how concentric rings in a tree allow one to carbon date its age. Each virus then counted and learned how many total cells in the host were infected and whether they needed to remain dormant or infect more cells. This finding will allow physicians to invent biological interventions that manipulate the peptide and trick the virus as a new way to treat viral infections. Here is a summary of some major viral outbreaks. While the actual number of deaths are not as high as in the days of Black Plague and Spanish flu, the percentage of deaths after infection in cases like MERS, bird flu, and Ebola are still scary. Of the hundreds of thousands of viruses that are believed to exist, only 586 infect mammals, of which just 263 affect humans. Now with novel coronavirus, make that 264. So how and why do viruses hop from species to species? Coronavirus is from a family of viruses that have been known to the medical fraternity for over 50 years, strains of which are responsible for 10 to 30% of all common colds in humans. However, the current deadly strains host reservoir are bats. Mosquitoes or fleas, vectors, transferred the virus to civet cats in China, from which SARS spread, and to camels in Saudi Arabia, from which MERS spread, both SARS and MERS being strains of the same coronavirus. Now normally animal viruses will not affect humans, but in China, bats are a delicacy.
Yummy.
Caves in hills once thick with bats are fast disappearing, and as their population is slowly getting threatened, they are looking for a new host, for which they need to mutate and make themselves amenable for a new environment in a process known as zoonosis, in whom they can reside until humans as a species themselves are threatened, when they will mutate once again to find another host. Keeping the bat population secure is the only logical way of stopping the spread of viruses they host. In fact, making sure the ecological balance in the animal world remains intact is the only long-term solution to stopping pandemics.
So that was about how the coronavirus is no different from this and how the viruses communicate with each other. Okay. Now let's look at the virus under a microscope.
You might recognize it by now. This is SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the novel coronavirus COVID-19. A single cell is just 120 nanometers in diameter. Here it is at 12 million times magnification, a microscopic virus that's turned the world upside down. Each cell of the virus is made up of 7 parts. On the outside, it's covered in nodules topped with distinctive protein spikes. It's these spikes that give the coronavirus family its name. In Latin, corona means crown. See? And the name COVID-19 simply means coronavirus disease of 2019. The corona protrudes from the glycoprotein membrane, an envelope of lipid molecules that coat the virus cell's body. This fatty layer of skin is very delicate and it falls apart when it meets soap. And that's why, for now, soap is our best weapon against the virus and why you should take your time washing your hands. After 20 seconds, soap penetrates the grease and grime on our hands enough to rip the virus membrane apart, killing it. Under that oily skin is where the real trouble lies. Inside each cell is a small sample of RNA, ribonucleic acid. It carries the virus's genetic code and allows it to multiply, leading to infection. But how does the viral RNA get into our bodies? It comes back to those protein spikes. After the virus has entered the human body, it uses those spikes to attach itself to a healthy cell in the respiratory system. Once that's done, the viral RNA is released and the takeover begins. The cell reads the viral RNA and makes proteins that keep our body's immune systems suppressed. That allows the virus to reproduce and multiply, killing healthy cells and potentially causing lifelong damage or death. So how do we beat this disease? Again, it's all to do with those protein spikes. They might be its strength, but scientists think they might also be its weakness. They now know its genetic code and can recreate it. A trial that began in Seattle is injecting people with that protein. Because it doesn't contain the viral RNA, they believe it's harmless, but it can teach the body how to make antibodies against the protein spikes. Those antibodies would cover the spikes, incapacitating the virus and prevent it from piercing healthy cells. That's the hope. It's just one of about 30 trials underway around the world right now. But most researchers agree a vaccine is still 12 to 18 months away. For now.
So this is about the mRNA route that has been taken by the AstraZeneca, what is now known as Covishield. Okay, so this is the route they have taken. They have tried to cover the protein spikes, cover the RNA, and see that the virus cannot propagate. So that is when you receive a vaccine, you are actually using this underlying technology to protect yourself. Okay, the last one, and then how do they eat lunch? Okay.
2020 made the world realize that biology is really complex.
Very interesting. I'll be skipping parts of it. I don't want to spend 11 minutes, but some of them are really very interesting.
Despite huge differences in morphology and biological structures, all living organisms do the same three basic things. They get food, digest it, and excrete waste materials. Living organisms require energy to live. Some produce their own food, usually through photosynthesis. We call these autotrophs. But many organisms cannot make their own food. We call these heterotrophs, and they eat. Among heterotrophic single-celled eukaryotes, Food is taken into the cell in various methods, but once it's there, it's wrapped by a membrane and forms something called a food vacuole. Then the cell flushes digestive enzymes inside the food vacuole to start the digestion. Nutrients are taken into the cytoplasm, and the waste material left in the vacuole then basically fuses with the outer membrane of the cell, and what's left in the vacuole is discharged into the environment. In some cases, like inside this beautiful single-celled Nacella ornata, which feeds on filamentous cyanobacteria, content of the food vacuole reacts with the digestive enzymes and changes color. But that process takes time. Because each vacuole formed at a different time, they are in different stages of digestion, which gives this cell its colorful polka dots. But how do these heterotrophic organisms get their food? Well, in spite of a remarkable amount of diversity, a lot of microorganisms use one of the same 3 strategies for getting their food. Some of this will be familiar to the macro world, some of it will not. One of the less familiar is filter feeding, which allows larger organisms to consume suspended food particles or much smaller organisms. There are filter feeders in the macro world. Baleen whales come to mind. But while a whale must swim through giant clouds of small organisms in the microcosmos, your food can come to you. Some filter feeders use hair-like structures called cilia to create a vortex that brings other microorganisms or food particles to the cell mouth. These cilia are specialized for this task, and their beating creates a current that expediently and beautifully directs every nearby thing into the waiting mouth of the microorganism. The cilia are often too small for us to see, but you can see their effects. Take a look at these paramecia. They're consuming tiny bacteria, and you can see their cilia causing small organisms to tumble across them. You can also see all of their food vacuoles on the inside, and if you look very carefully, you can see a new food vacuole forming and getting filled up with those tiny bacterial cells. Some of the best and most obvious filter feeders are rotifers, microanimals that use cilia to create swirling vortices around their mouth parts. You can see how successful this feeding strategy is by its belly full of algae cells. Every time its mouth fills with more algae, it contracts to swallow the food. Now observe these single-celled organisms called stentors. They are much bigger than most other microorganisms. You can actually see them with the naked eye. And they also use filter feeding to push all of their algal food into their cell mouths. Our second feeding mechanism, maybe the most familiar and the most exciting, is called raptorial feeding. Raptorial feeders selectively capture prey and hunt other organisms. In this video, you can see Dileptus hunting. It paralyzes one organism with a touch of its trunk-like proboscis, and then it pulls that organism into itself in a process called phagocytosis. Many of these microorganisms are armed with something called toxicysts. These are little harpoon-like structures filled with toxins, and they're located on a particular part of the cell which the microorganism uses for hunting. These tiny harpoons are then fired when they come in contact with prey organisms, which then become immobilized. This is Bursaria. It's a single-celled organism with a huge mouth, and things have not gone well for the paramecium that is now inside it. The paramecium dies immediately because of the toxicists on the inside of the Bursaria, so at least it was quick. Now get ready for some truly gorgeous footage of a microanimal's day going south. First, Paradileptus immobilizes the rotifer with fired toxicists, and the animal is swallowed by the single-celled organism as it swims away. This is Frontonia, which is a close relative of Paramecia, but it lacks the filter feeding habits of its relatives.
Because, okay. So basically, this footage is actual footage. It is not recreated. It is actual photography to a very this is what I told Chetan, that you'll see some amazing photography in one of these videos. This is a video, and this is photography inside your body. Okay, so this is happening in your gut bacteria. This is how the gut bacteria live, and your paratha and your poha that you eat in the morning is all going through this process. Okay, so very we can't just come to terms with it, but this is the truth. So the last slide, how do we live a microbiome friendly life? Okay, so this is where I'll conclude, and then I'll be ready to take questions. Let's look at how we modify our microbiome within our this. First of all, the microbiome that, sorry, somebody wants to say something. Is somebody wanting to say something? Somebody's mic is on. Okay, anyway, so the first is, how do we alter the microbiome that we are born with? Okay, what are the things we do? That is application, ingestion, and lifestyle. I've divided those things into three parts. First is the application. What all do we apply on top of our body? We apply sterilizers. Everywhere you go, you are given a sterilizer. If you come to my office, my pune will squirt some liquid on your hand, and he'll tell you, please wash your hands, clean your hands. They told you to wash for 20 minutes or whatever this, and kill all the sterilizers. If somebody's mic is on, can you mute yourself, please? They will do this. So what are the sterilizers doing? The sterilizers are chemicals which are going and hitting this bacteria, and then you have seen the variety of bacteria that is living. I have not taken videos of bacteria on your skin because they're too gruesome and you will not like your own body. So I've kept that away. Okay. So the sterilizers are going and killing that bacteria. And what is happening to the bacteria? The bacteria is getting burst. It's getting broken into pieces. I like to give the analogy of a rubber band, which bacteria is cutting into 4 or 5 pieces. There is still the DNA, the RNA there, and it's mixing with some other bacteria, and it's mixing with your human cell, and it's doing something. Most of the time, it does nothing. You just wash and nothing happens to you, but you are affecting and fighting the microbiome in your body whenever you put a sterilizer. Okay. Second is soap. Most of the soaps will say Tikano ko mata hai, 99% of the germs. You bloody don't even know what germs are there in that person's body. You don't even know what should be killed and what should not be killed. I mean, the science is just developing, but we apply soap regularly, and we feel having a soap bath is very important. Until about 60 years back, there was no soap. How did my grandmother have bath in her village? She used coconut husk, she used chana ka dal, and she used haldi ka powder, and she had a bath, and she lived happily. And maybe 500 generations before her did that. But about 60, 70 years back, we got soap into our lives, and then we use soap everywhere. Okay, because we feel soap is better and not chane ka dal, which is what until my grandmother's life they used. We brush our teeth in the morning. We don't know what is there in the toothpaste. They're supposed to kill all the germs, and we are told that you must kill the germs. So I ask people that, do dogs have to brush their teeth? Does an alligator brush his teeth? Does an alligator get cavities? Does a cow have a root canal surgery? I mean, there may be a few cows that may be having root canal, but by and large, as an animal, do they have this? No, but we have toothpaste, we brush our teeth, we eat all junk food, we promote the wrong bacteria in your mouth, the wrong bacteria bores itself and creates cavities, and then you have a root canal because of, one is toothpaste and the second is a diet. And then we put deodorant on our armpits. We don't want body odor, so we put something that kills the microbiomes there, and then that has its own effect. Okay, so these are the ways in which we damage the microbiome in our body by things that we apply. And then I'm not talking of makeup and all that, which is an entirely different story, because we don't even know what chemicals are there in all those makeups that women apply, and the hair dye, which again I'm not gone into the cosmetic part of it, but women get more and more breast cancer, and there is a feeling that it is linked to all the chemicals that women put on their bodies in order to beautify themselves. Okay, sorry about this, ladies, but that's the truth. Okay, second is ingestion. What do you eat? Processed foods. Processed foods are irradiated. They are sterilized. They are made So many chemicals are put into them. They're called fungicides or germicides or preservatives. Different names are used, but they are all done to keep the bacterial microbiome content of that biscuit, of that noodle in control till you cook it and eat it. But that chemical is now entering your body. And what is it doing to the microbiome in your stomach, in your gut? We don't know. So processed food is, in my opinion, a big unknown factor. We filter our water and drink. I gave you the story of my village. E. coli count more than 10 times. Everybody was drinking it normally. People are just going to the pond, filtering it in a matka and drinking the water in the village. And I went there and put an arrow and tried to be too smart. And lastly, animal produce. We saw the video of that bats and people in China eating bats. So all kinds of animal produce bring all kinds of microbiome that is good for the animal. The animal needs that microbiome, but that is now entering your body and altering the microbiome in your own body, and we don't know what it does for that. Okay, so these are the ways in which we alter the microbiome. What is a lifestyle that can help us have a healthy microbiome? We understand that the underlying microbiome is causing diseases, is causing cardiovascular diseases, is causing diabetes, and these are all I read out to you. But what can you do to live healthily? Okay, simple things. Okay, the first thing is you must eat your mother's food. The food that your mother ate, what was her diet, is the diet that you should be having. Why? Because 80 to 90% of the bacterial microbiome that comes to you comes from your mother. Again, there is this science, and that is now being proven, that people who are born with cesarean operations and have not passed, the fetus or the baby has not passed to the vaginal path, don't have the healthy microbiome that the mother has, because most of the placenta
ब्रेड तो बहुत ही छोटी है.
अरे
वो उसमें टोस्टर के अंदर पूरी घुस गई, टोस्टर बंद नहीं हो रहा.
Nikhil, I think you're not muted.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so your mother's vaginal passage gives you the microbiome that you should get, and when you do a cesarean, you don't have the microbiome. There's a lot of debate with gynacs about putting eye drops immediately to stop some virus, about immediately bathing the child. In fact, many gynacs are now covering the baby with a placenta so that the baby gets the bacterial microbiome that the mother should give to the baby in a natural method. So we are kind of reinventing many old things. So, but the food that your mother ate is a bacterial microbiome that you have. So you should eat what your mother was eating. Okay, from a healthy point of view. Gardening. How much of us touch the soil? We saw that thing about national, NIH, where people are touching soil, gardening. When was the last time you took a pot and dug the mud and put a money plant into it? Okay, probably never. Probably can't remember. Gardening is given to a mali in most cases, or the pot we just water it. If it dies, we throw it out and bring another pot and keep it. So gardening, let the soil touch you. Let it go into your hands. Let it go into your feet. There are very healthy bacteria in the soil that your body needs. You can replenish the bacterial microbiome by gardening. Barefoot walking, another thing. Barefoot walking in the house, good. Barefoot walking in the park, in the grass, in the beach, highly recommended from a bacterial microbiome point of view. Fermented foods. We in our Indian cuisine, we have a huge amount of fermented foods. Okay, dokla, idli, dosa. You don't have to think kombucha. You don't have to think, because we read only American literature for food, for our nutrition. But look at Indian literature. Look at Indian practices. In Tamil Nadu, those who are Tamilians, we have something called Pairashadam. So what we take is that we take the rice of the previous day, whichever is left over, but nobody could finish, and we put it in water and we cover it with water. And the next day, the water and the rice has fermented, and the water is drunk, and the rice is eaten. The rice is eaten with yogurt, curd, which again is fermented, okay, which we all know. So huge amount of bacterial microbiome going in and doing good for you, doing good for your bacteria. And lastly, probiotics. If all this doesn't help, take some probiotics. Again, there's a lot of science and fiction, but yeah, taking something is better than not taking it. So I come to the end of my presentation here, and I'm open for questions. Sorry, I extended the time a little bit, but yeah, but it was interesting. So I'm open for questions. You can chat, you can unmute yourself, whatever. I hope it was interesting. I hope it was something that will make you healthy if you follow some of the practices. There is one thumbs up. I mean, I don't know. Let me see how to. Are there any questions?
Yes, I do. So
Sure.
I have a friend. She's allergic to the fermented food. I mean, she eats fermented food, and I mean, it's like reacts to her. So in that case, what she's supposed to do? She cannot eat anything which is fermented.
What kind of fermented? Is it wine? Is it beer? Is it bread? Is it dokla? Is it idli?
Almost everything which is fermented.
Okay. So in that case, she probably has a history of having taken a lot of medication in the past.
Okay.
I mean, if you ask her that what will come out, okay? And that has altered the bacterial microbiome, and she's not able to handle the bacteria that comes through the fermentation process, which is called probiotics or good biotics. Okay, she obviously has had a past where she has taken a lot of processed food and a lot of medication for one thing or the other. In that, see, in all cases, you should introduce slowly. For example, fiber is good for you, as an example, okay? Because the fiber contains a lot of the bacterial microbiome that needs to go. But if you take too much of fiber and your body is not used to the fiber, you get flatulence because the gas is coming from the bacteria, okay? You get flatulence. So even if you're introducing fiber, you must introduce that in slowly, and slowly build up the capability of the body to handle fiber. And in the same way, she should slowly take it in smaller doses, not take too much, see at what level it tolerates, and build up the tolerance and build up the healthy gut microbiome over a period of time.
Okay. Yeah, that could be true because she did have a lot of medication in like previously.
Yeah, she must have definitely had medication. I mean, you don't have to. I don't have to look at her. I know that this is the history. Sorry, guys. I've been following this for about 10 years, and a lot of my knowledge comes out of all this reading. But a lot of my knowledge also comes out of observing other people and seeing what's happening in their lives. Hi, Bhavna.
Hi, good morning,
Hey,
sir.
thanks for coming.
It's nice to meet you.
Hi, Mayur. Hi.
It was very exciting topic, so I had to join.
Thank you.
Can I add something here, sir, please?
Sure, of course. Most welcome. I mean, the floor is open. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, coming to the allergic reaction, there was a case that she discussed. So let's discuss that only. So what happens that it depends like what kind of reactions. That's the first thing. What kind of symptoms she's getting after when you say she's allergic to something. Okay, I would look into this way that of course, because I'm into Ayurveda also, I've done my advanced Ayurveda dietetics recently. So the point is that you need to understand your element, what kind of, there are 5 elements in the body. We all know about it: fire, earth, water, earth, and space. So there are a lot of asavas, which are available in Ayurveda, which has got fermented medications. So depends on her depends on her body constitution. We can heal this. That's possible. And you rightly said that adding fibers would add, but that should not even imbalance her air element vata. What you said, it creates the gas. So we need to understand what are the symptoms she's getting out of when she gets allergic or she reacts. How does she react? In what symptoms she's getting reacted? And accordingly we should treat this. That's what I would look at.
I want to add something to what Bhavna has said. I believe that our ancients had a lot of knowledge. I'm not this right-wing Hindu kind of guy who says that, Hindu man and all that. I'm not at all. Many people who follow me know that I'm anti, kind of right-wing kind of guy. But there was definitely knowledge, and that knowledge came from observation. And that got distilled down as grandmother's legacy, or, we call it Natu Vaidhyam, that is native medication, kind of thing. But there's a lot of science behind it, but it's not the languaging that we are currently used to hearing. So we tend to be dismissive. But I would say that go back to your roots. They knew what they were doing. They survived for all these years. You wouldn't have been born if they were doing stupid things. Okay. So go back and apply your own thing. For example, oil bath. And I've not gone into many aspects here. For example, we say vitamin D. Let me give one very interesting thing. We say vitamin D will come when you're exposed to the sun. Okay, this is knowledge. Okay, everybody says, "Arey vitamin D ka exposure nahi hai, to iske liye sun ka exposure nahi hai, iske liye vitamin D nahi hai." Kind of thing. This kind of common sense. Okay, but what happens when you are out in the sun? The ultraviolet rays of the sun fall on your skin. What is happening there? How is vitamin D coming? So there are certain bacteria on your skin which are the precursor for vitamin D. What is a precursor? It means vitamin D3 is D2 or D1, if those are the terms. The bacterial cells, because of ultraviolet rays, modify themselves, and that same thing breaks down and becomes vitamin D3. And then they go into your skin, and then they help assimilate calcium, and then you have stronger bones and the rest of part of it. Correct? So there is this bacteria which is healthy, which is living on your skin, which is actually making vitamin D3. Just because sunlight has fallen, how does it become vitamin? It is a bacteria which is becoming the vitamin B3, and this, you can go through this. So there's a lot of this. So what did our ancients do? They put oil on their body and they allowed it to soak. Sunday bolega to oil bath hona. It's a kind of old world lifestyle. But there's a logic to it. And then many of us in our village used to sit in the sun after applying oil. But vitamin D3 is an oil-based vitamin. Okay, the ultraviolet rays works on the vitamin D3. Did they know all this? Probably they didn't know, but they just knew that it was good for them, and they did it. So there's a lot of hidden knowledge in the ways of the ancient, and Bhavna has brought that out by explaining the Ayurvedic way of interpreting what I said in a very simple term. Thank you, Bhavna. Thanks for adding value to the session.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody wants to say anything?
So, Venkat, I would like to say that, like in childhood, we used to play a lot in the grass, in the mud, in the barefoot, and I remember whenever I used to get injured, we used to apply the मिट्टी जमीन से मिट्टी लेके उसमें डालते थे और like used to get healed, that injury used to get healed.
Correct.
So, अभी अगर ये चीज अगर अभी हम लोग बोलेंगे किसको तो बोलेगा पागल है, तो ऐसा तब they tell children to not to go in the mud, don't get dirty. But हमने इतना खेला है कि we used to climb the trees and so many things, touching. I mean, जो grass में खेलते थे हम लोग barefoot है, काफी चीज होता था. So I think that helps me to build that kind of things.
Correct. I fully agree with you. In fact, I was going to give this example. We used to trip and fall so many times, and we used to get scrapes, and we should take mud and we should remove all the stones. और उसको ये करता था, फिर बाद में fine dust को लेके pack कर देता था. We used to be waiting outside. माँ इन्हें करना मांगता है. After few hours, it used to kind of form a scab, and then we would wash it and go home. So that the injury was hidden from our parents, kind of thing. Yeah, and today you immediately go for Savlon, you go for Dettol, and you put a Band-Aid on top of it, which is in some extent counterintuitive, because the bacteria in the soil helped you to heal and form the blood clot faster and help you to heal.
There is another point I would like to add. So that I think a few years when I was a child, and when my mother, she used to give me the coal powder and salt to brush my teeth, and that time this whole Colgate thing and everything started. And obviously, dekha dekhi mein, then we started getting the Colgate. And now when I look at the advertisement from Colgate with the coal powder, I am surprised that why the hell we didn't continue with that.
So the next time we are in Kalina, I will show you all the place where today there's a medical shop, but it used to be a rice mill. Rice mill bolega to chakki kata nahi. They used to remove the bran, the husk from the rice, and they were all paddy fields around Kalina in my childhood. The rice mill was there, and we used to go and get the husk in my house, and my grandmother would roast the husk so it would become dark, and that would be the charcoal. And then we would just add salt, and then if we were feeling luxurious, we'd put a drop or two of eucalyptus oil, and that is what we brushed our teeth with, and that is what my grandmother brushed her teeth, and that is what generations before us brushed their teeth with. The others use their twig. In South India, rice husk was very common, so that is what we used to brush our teeth with. And then we got toothpaste. We called it progress. My grandmother never had a cavity. She lived up to about 75 years of age. She never had a root canal. She ate normal food that she was eating. And I know of at least another 10 people in my village who have not had cavities in their lives and not had root canals in their lives.
Hello.
Yes, Sandeep. Hi.
Hi. Hi, doctor. Doctor, मैं एक बात अभी I was
Hey,
just
I'm not a doctor. I'm a
listening.
chartered accountant. Let me again clarify.
You are a okay.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor.
Okay. Okay. Then okay. Then okay. Now, I was just thinking on the same lines that if you have so much of knowledge and if you're interested in this subject, right? So are you planning to write a book or something on this? Because I
No,
think
really. No, but there's a very good book that has been written called All About Bacteria. Very small book, and I've read that book. It's an
Yeah,
Indian
yeah.
author who is based in Singapore and who's a VC. I can
Okay.
share that book details. A very small book, very basic book, and very filled with a lot of Indian knowledge of what we thought this about how Indians led a bacteria-friendly life in their older lifestyle. I will put the link to that book, and that can be ordered, and that's a good book to start with.
Yeah, I think because I just recalled the same thing that you spoke about a grandmother. Actually, my grandfather was 107 years old when he died, and all his 32 teeth were intact at that time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
and he never used any toothpaste or something. That was chule ki raak hoti thi. Just
Yeah.
use that for his entire life and all. Yeah. So all this, I think it's all it depends on क्या है कि all this मुझे
Correct.
advertisement and all. They are just to fetch their own pockets. That's why it's all.
Yeah, they just come out with things that'll make them rich. They put pseudoscience, and with advertisement, we are led to believe that that is healthy.
Yeah, Aldi, because I have the same discussion with my kids that if this I used to tell them if you say that the toothpaste is very good, then why is the case that the dental doctors or the dental clinics are increasing such a huge number?
Correct.
yeah, day by day. So this is actually a paradox. कि पेस्ट यूज करो और आपके दांत है वो ये रखो सुरक्षित रखो अगर दांत अगर वो सुरक्षित हो तो देन व्हाई यू नीड दिस dental clinics and all.
I agree with you.
Yeah, okay, so it's for the very nice session, Venkat.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
Dr. Charushila, thank you for joining.
Venkat sir, can I add something again?
Sure, Bhavna. Sure, doctor.
Sorry. Yeah, okay. Thank you for listening to me. I should say thank you to all the participants. So Venkat sir, when we are talking about fibers, when we're talking about probiotics, there are prebiotics also, right? So prebiotics are something which would give the environment to, proliferate all the bacteria there. That is how we're talking about the fibers. So I would, add something here, that is millets. So when we are, becoming so health conscious, or we are all aware about benefits of ragi, bajri, and all these things which we've already, most of us have already included in our diet nowadays. So let us even add some kind of millets. So when I say millets, there are foxtail millets, kodru millets, if you heard about kodo millets, or there can be barnyard millets or brown top millets. So there are a lot of millets which are available. Again, as you said, before 60, 70 years, there was a quite different lifestyle. So our ancestors, they would, have a lot of these millets in and making different kind of khichdis and chapatis and all those things. So that also can be added. Now, normally, like what I do when I make my dosa, fermented dosas or something, I don't use rice. Instead of that, I use millets. So it's like millets and urad, something like that. And then we make the dosa. So that becomes a better, combination in terms of nutrition. At the same time, you get a lot of fibers there. So that's one point I wanted to add here. One more thing I want to, talk about, that is about the any kind of, extracts. Nowadays we get a lot of herbal extracts or supplements where that it says that it's got some extract in the capsular form. So again, the powder of a leaf or a powder of a bark or any kind of herbal powder which you get, it has a lot of fibers, and it has a certain kind of a combination of it which would work towards your in your body, whereas taking out the extract might not give the same benefits. It's again a very controversial thing, because people have been doing a lot of research with the extract, and they would extract a specific potential specific what you can say, a kind of extract which is come out from that particular herbal plant, and then that is put up in the capsule. But instead I would suggest that it should be whole plant powder of whatever leaf or a bark or whatsoever it would be, or a root, and that should be taken. So that's it from my side. Yeah.
Thank you. So, Bhavna, I really agree. What has happened is that modern agriculture and this modern farming, and one of the reasons why I'm opposing the farm bills is because it is corporatizing farming, is that we run the risk of going into monoculture. So, monoculture means that the same variety of rice is grown. Whereas in South India, there are about some 200 varieties of rice. But we are going to monoculture because genetically we are modifying them, we are making them bacteria resistant, we are making them table varieties, and we are reducing the number of grains in rice, the number of variety. So forget the other grains. You're talking of millet and all that. Matlab the chawal hi itna, we are just eating one type of chawal. That is also monoculture. So definitely that video which you first saw, where if you added 30 types of plant food to your diet, you get a very diverse microbiome in your body, which is healthy, because then your resistance to all the good bacteria are there in your body. Is very much true. And what you're saying about millets is the same thing. You should add more types of grains, more types of nuts, more types of plants, more types of we don't realize this, but in a plant there are about 7 things that you can eat. We don't realize this. There's a leaf, spinach, methi, whatever it is. There is a root, potato, yam, whatever it is. There is a bark. We eat cinnamon and whatever. Fruit, we know all of them. Grains, nuts, seeds. So there are 7 parts of the plant that are all edible in different proportions and from different plants. And the more variety we have, the better off we are.
Totally agree, sir. Yes.
They make a big joke of, next to the railway track, they are growing the methi or gutter ka pani wapata hai. People think that it's very unhealthy and they make a humor of it. But I am saying the gutter ka pani vapar ke jo methi banana, that has got a healthy microbiome, which is actually helping you build your immunity. So actually you are shying away from building your immunity by not having that methi. मैं तो साला जाके खरीद के लेके आके खाएगा उसको. After of course cooking. So if there are no other questions, then can we close the session, because it's about 12:15. We are beyond by 15 minutes. Any last questions? Kevin, thank you for joining. Manor, thank you for joining. Anirudh, thank you for joining. Amit, thank you for joining.
Hello, Venkat sir. Can I just
Sure.
put one question?
Sure.
Yeah. So thanks for this very informative session. And a couple of days back, I was watching a documentary on YouTube where it was like a comparison was given between the cooked food and the raw food. So they have come up with like the Japanese people, as it is already known, they have got a very huge lifespan. So they have given the comparison that the traditional Japanese people, the older people, they prefer to eat raw food, whether it is fish, meat. Definitely meat is a staple food for them. All the dishes over there in Japan consist of say deer meat or fish and all those sort of things, but it comes along with the veggies as well. But then there is this with the modern technologies, lot of cooking experiments have started coming in, and they have given the comparison like with the same kind of food which you are eating raw, whether it is a animal food or whether it is a plant food, and when you are cooking it, it somehow leads to the growth of diseases, and it also reduces their lifespan. So, I mean, is there some kind of study being done in India as well? Because in India, we know traditionally our foods are not raw actually. They are somewhat in the middle of raw and cooked one. Like we eat salads, but along with that, we also cook a lot of things. I mean, if you go to, if you consider the sweets part, so gajar ka halwa and all sort of things are there, gulab jamun and everything is there. So it's been there since a long time, since centuries. So is there any kind of study being done like the comparison for Indian food? Because what I've heard or what I've seen was the comparison for Japanese food only and the Japanese food culture.
Thank you, Nikhil. I am not aware because if the study is being done, it would have been done in National Institute of Nutrition, which is in Hyderabad, a very uh, tremendously scientific driven body, does a huge amount of work by the publications. They are available online. That is really true Indian nutrition. Desi values kya hai? People say egg mein itna protein hai because we are reading all American knowledge. But does the Indian egg have that much protein? Is what they do, and what kind of hen has got what amount of protein? If you want to take eggs for protein, they do that kind of research, and their menus and everything is fantastic. They're doing so. I'm not aware if any such research is being done. But coming to food habits, I want to say that our traditional Indian meals always had some raw food element in the typical meal. If you took a typical thali, there was kachumbar, there was a salad, there was, we used to call it pachdi. So the whatever name it was there was an element of raw food that was part of the cuisine. They would have an onion, and break an onion. They would have peanuts with ground chilies, which again is all raw food, not cooked at all, and have it as techa, for example, is raw. You just grind mirchi with chana powder and this. So there was always a raw food element in the food, along with all the other cooked foods. And over a period of time, we are losing this raw food as part of our culture. We are we are eating lesser and lesser amount of a variety of foods. We are going more for convenience foods. The kinds of things that my mother used to make with banana leaves or banana stem or banana flowers don't get made unless there's a, Sandeep, your mic is on. Sandeep. So the kind of this is not done. So even our variety of cuisine that was local, and we were living in that microbiome of the village, the soil, the water, and the food that was grown there. We are becoming diverse. We are coming to cities where food is flying thousands of miles. We are going to a food hall and buying that. And what is it doing to our microbiome? How is it affecting us? We don't know. Is all this ill health that we see, is all this cardiovascular disease that is increasing, is all this diabetes that is increasing, is that because of our food habits? We don't know, and the connection is not established. I tried to bring some of it today, but we are still progressing. I would say stay safe, eat what your mother ate, eat what your ancestors ate. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, that's right. Just want to add one more thing to Chetan's earlier observation regarding use of mud. So I was watching another YouTube video. It's like somewhere in between border of Uganda, and there is a village where people actually sell mud in the form of cakes. So you can say like it's just like jaggery, they're selling the mud, and that mud is being consumed by people as a part of pain alleviation. And it is also said that it has got medicinal capabilities. So it is it's a staple for the pregnant woman over there, because it helps in easing up with their during the pain which they have during the delivery. It eases up that. So just wanted to add that as well. If someone gets a chance, you can just Google around. It's a really interesting revelation actually.
So there is this I didn't go into this aspect of how the bacterial microbiome controls the food that you like, because the bacteria signals in the gut what it wants and what it doesn't want. Okay, so if you keep on eating chocolates, for example, you develop more of the gut bacteria that wants chocolates. Okay, so you then develop a fascination because the gut is now signaling to your brain, to the vagus nerve. We saw that in a video, that, oh, give me chocolate. Okay, and then when a chocolate comes in front of you, you just want to have it because, oh, I am a chocolate addict, I love chocolates. Nothing, your gut bacteria loves chocolates. You don't love chocolates. Chocolate is actually harming you. It's the bacteria that is controlling you. That is what I think to myself, but I don't say it in society. Okay, so anyway, so the gut bacteria wants the chocolates. So what they did is that they did in an experiment, they took the fecal matter of somebody who was eating chocolates all his life and was a chocolate addict kind of person, and they took that fecal and did what is known as a fecal transplant, which means basically they take your poop and they push it through the rectum into the large intestine of the other person. They surprisingly they found that the person who had never eaten chocolates in his life and never had known, after having this transplant, started wanting chocolates, and when he was given a chocolate, he liked it so much that he wanted to have it more and more and more. So the guy who was not even, I mean, he didn't even know what a chocolate was, but because of the fecal transplant from a chocolate loving person, the behavior and the approach and the likingness for certain foods increases the other person. This is a documented study. So it's a gut bacteria that you feed that actually determines what it wants and what it demands. And you feed it wrong stuff, it will keep demanding wrong stuff, and then you'll keep on putting on weight, and you will say, oh, I'm a foodie. You're not a foodie, your gut bacteria is a foodie. So if you have done, and if there are no more questions, we'll close this session. Thank you, everybody. Any last hands going up before I close the meeting? Monor, you want to say something? Okay. Chalo, thank you, everybody. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Venkat sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye. 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 Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.